Hello, this is Rabbi Tobin. We're at B'nai Shalom studying Talmud on Monday, and today is July 16th, and we are on page 15b of Tractate Chagiga. Hi, guys. Feel good? We just finished a long baraita where Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, Acher, and Rabbi Meir did a circuit of a whole bunch of Batei Midrash and Batei Knesset. He went to a bunch of study houses and synagogues where children were studying Torah, and we talked about this. This is kind of a form of divination, where you create an unpredictable circumstance that's going to give you a Torah verse, and the Torah verse is the answer to your question. Whether it's an unspoken question or not depends on your circumstance. So in this case, the unspoken question was pretty clear. How would you summarize the unspoken question of Acher with Rabbi Meir as they traveled around to the study houses?
Would he be able to repent?
Will he be able to repent? Does he have a chance? Is it worthwhile? And why is that question in the air? What you got? Talmud recites, was this week?
Yes.
That's funny.
Isn't that outrageous?
That's very funny.
It's the same.
It's
one
exactly where we are.
Just what we read.
It's the exact
The
baraita.
same person who read it here read it Shabbat.
So, the conservative yeshiva in Jerusalem, its Torah Sparks this past week, actually quoted the exact baraita that I'm talking about in the weekly Parsha commentary. That's hysterical. In the conservative movement, we've got about 10 stories in the Talmud that we all love, that we use a lot. It would probably be better to have 10 books of the Talmud that we don't love so much and that we go as far into. But there's a lot of people who they just kind of know the hit list. Lo b'shamayim hi and in Bava Metzia is like the clarion call of the conservative movement. Hello, welcome. You all good? Okay, so we just got started. We were just doing a little review. So Rabbi Meir and Elisha ben Abuya do a circuit of the houses of study. The unspoken question in the air is, can Elisha ben Abuya do teshuvah? Will he be forgiven by God if he does teshuvah? Teshuvah for what? So far, what do we know about him? He asks nudnik questions. He disrupted the heavenly hosts when he was up there on a visit. And after giving up hope, he went to a prostitute, he picked radishes on Shabbos, he rides a horse on Shabbos, but he doesn't disengage from Torah conversation, at least with Rabbi Meir. And he's respectful of Rabbi Meir's observance. He says, Rabbi Meir, stop walking, this is the Tchum Shabbat, you can't, go any farther, you'll be breaking Shabbos.
Can you be breaking Shabbos just by walking?
You're not allowed to walk infinitely on Shabbat, because you're not allowed to travel. So there's 2,000 amot from your Shabbos home that if there's no Eruv, you're allowed to walk. 2,000 amot in any direction. And then the rabbis square the circle, so you get a little more room in the corners if you're studying Masechet Eruvin. But it's about 2,000 amot, 2,000 yards. So if you live in the country, you can walk to town. You can't carry to town,
Right.
but you can walk to town as long as town is only 2,000 yards away. So 200 yards on 100 yards on a football field, so 20 of those. If you're 20 football fields away, you can walk there on Shabbos. Beyond that, you're not allowed to go, even if your hands are empty.
So a 5-mile walk.
A 5-mile walk that's a circle is not a problem because you're within the 2,000 amot. You can't go 5 miles in one direction. You can't go like 2.5 miles out and 2.5 miles back on your hike. But if no portion of that loop that you're hiking on is more than 2,000 amot from your Shabbos center, then you're okay. That's the way it works. So there's two. That's an eruv. You have an eruv without a wall, and then you have an eruv when you build a wall. By the way, at Camp Ramah, I saw it. They have a real eruv now. That was a beautiful eruv. Somebody took time and built it properly. I have been, it's not been there a long time. It's new.
They had other eras before then.
This Eruv is new,
This one.
and this Eruv is like a mamash perfect Eruv. It's really, whoever did that, kol hakavod. I mean, I walked in and I started admiring the Eruv, and my daughter's like, stop being a nerd. But I was really admiring it. It was beautifully done.
I thought they were supposed to be unobservable almost.
No, you can see them. It's better if you can see them.
Yeah, okay.
But you don't have to, as long as it's there.
And you have to be able to see it to know it.
Well, somebody has to see it to check it, and then everyone else relies on the person who checked it. Come on in, folks. Okay, so the question in the air that brings Meir and Acher to this series of 10 study houses is, can he do tshuva? And in each place they walk in and he says to a kid, tell me what your verse is, what you happen to be on randomly, and every single one of them condemns him, and the last one condemns him really badly. And then there's an argument from a later level of Talmud about whether or not Elisha ben Abuya takes a knife and cuts him up, or whether he was angry enough to have done it had he had a knife. And then somebody else responds and says, Chas v'shalom, God forbid that anything like that could ever have happened, and we're going to stick with that. New sugya. So 15b, if you are in your packets, there is a page that is numbered 13 on the right in my handwriting. It's 2 pages of 15b, English and English, like this. And on the top left side of the first page, it says in parentheses, Acher said 15b to a child. We're right at the top of that. Here. Nope, you're going to go on the other side. There. We're here. We did that first paragraph, and now we're going to do when Acher died. So we're going to jump ahead. So we don't really have much else as far as the actions of Acher. That's all you've got. Reactions about that? Because now we're going to talk about judgment in the world to come and what happens after he dies. He's still in play. We're still learning more about him. But his actual biographical actions have now come to a close. That's all you're going to know about him. Okay? Pretty extreme punishment. Cut off entirely from the gates of tshuva and the world to come. So that's what they're going to focus in. Is that really the punishment that he gets? So Acher dies. Okay, who would like to read this paragraph?
When Acher died, they said, let him not be judged, nor let him enter the world to come. Let him not be judged because he engaged in the study of the Torah, nor let him enter the world to come because he sinned.
Okay, so this is a parallelism. Judaism loves parallelism. I say A and I say B. If I have A and B is the opposite, and then I say B, the next thing is going to be the opposite. We go back and forth in Abba, Ima, Ima, Abba, Abba, Ima, Ima, Abba, Abba, Ima, Ima. You know the camp song, right? Where we throw out one thing and you throw out the opposite, and then we try and confuse you. That's what Talmud does. So what we have here is when he died, they said, who's they?
The rabbi.
Presumably the heavenly hosts in charge of letting people into the world to come. Don't judge him. So now you need to understand, the word here, don't judge him, doesn't mean, if I say don't judge me, what do you think, what do I think you're going to do? If I say stand, stop, don't judge me, what do I think you're doing?
You're gonna let
Positively or negatively?
Negative.
Does the word to judge imply negativity? Only the way we use it. The word itself does not imply negativity. But we're in a generation where how dare you judge me? And that's American culture. If you bring judgment and values against me, you are doing something wrong. Because after all, I'm okay, you're okay, and it's a perfect world if we're allowed to do whatever we want. That's the culture we live in. So the word judge is inherently offensive to us, which is ridiculous. Right? And it's a sign of something gone terribly, terribly wrong, but we'll do culture wars another day. Judgment is the highest form of human and divine interaction. Right? I look at what I've done, I take a real accounting of it, I'm honest about it, and the purpose of it is to get rid of the bad stuff and reward the good stuff, and learn how to avoid the bad stuff moving forward and make myself better. That's the process of judgment. And that's Yom Kippur, and that's why those days are still powerful for us as a people. No, tshuva is admitting that I'm wrong.
Right.
Judgment is also acknowledging the good, which I included in my sentence. Judgment is bringing everything to bear and having an honest accounting. That should not be an offensive behavior. But it is in our culture. If I were to come and say, Marion, I would like to talk about all the things you do well and badly in life. You got a few minutes?
How about an
But it
hour?
assumes there's a judge. In other words, the word assumes that you are going to be judged.
It is, it assumes that there is a standard of right and wrong, which you'll be accountable to. You might judge yourself. Your friend might judge you. A judge might judge you. God might judge you. There are levels of who the authority is, but theoretically anybody can engage in this behavior. It's simply analysis. It's objective, dispassionate analysis. The act of judgment. It's discernment. Convicting and forgiving are the judgments. But the act of judging is analysis. It's an honesty exercise. Right? That's what it's supposed to be. So the presumption is when you judge a Torah scholar, what's going to happen? It's going to be a very positive outcome. He learned a lot of Torah, and he's about to go into the world to come. If you allow him to stand in judgment, it's going to go very well for him. That's how the word judge is being used here. So you have to understand, it's our culture that starts with the idea that don't judge him sounds like mercy to us. Like you're going to forgive him his sins by withholding judgment. Quite to the contrary. If you don't allow him to be judged, he'll never be redeemed by his merits. The act of judgment will be an act of redemption because of his merits and his Torah scholar. So he wants to be judged. People who want him to get in will want him to be judged. Because Torah learning is powerful.
Right.
Okay? That's the Talmud's presumption when it talks about judgment. It's the exact opposite of what we would have thought. So you need to kind of just know that to understand the page. So it says, let him not be judged, nor let him enter the world to come. Let him not be judged because he engaged in the study of Torah, nor let him enter the world to come because he sinned.
So where is he, in limbo?
Well, that's a darn good question. So remember, this chapter of Talmud has already professed a belief in Gehenna.
Yeah.
So there's a bad place after death where people can go. And there's a good place, the Olam Haba, the world to come, that people can go. And so when you get judged, you could wind up in either place. If he's not getting judged, what's happening to him?
Maybe they'll let him live.
No, he's dead. The guy is dead. I can open the box for you.
Yeah.
He's dead. He's just dead. Purgatory, you're alive. You're just not in either place. That's a Catholic teaching.
So is there a place like limbo?
Limbo is like purgatory. We don't have that.
So he's just in the ground.
He's just dead. Is there anything worse than that? For a religion that believes in afterlife, is there anything worse than just dead?
So when Mashiach comes, he's not going to be redeemed.
I don't know.
Obviously not.
I'm looking forward to getting that answered. All right.
Not too soon.
So I would think Gehinnom is worse,
Right.
right? But he's getting neither. He's just dead. It's desiccation and darkness and nothing, right? So I don't know. Where is he? Rabbi Meir says, the truth of the matter is these are the questions that probably keep us all out of the really good schools. So we don't, got to let the story move on. We can't get stuck on it. So Rabbi Meir says, it were better that he should be judged. Go on. You've got Rabbi Meir.
Oh, and that he should enter the world to come. When I die, I shall cause smoke to rise from his grave.
Okay,
When-
hang on. So we got to piece this together. We're not going to know what this means until we finish the sugya. So Rabbi Meir says, let him just lie dead in the grave. That's horrible. He needs to be released. When I die, Rabbi Meir says he will go and he will petition on high to have something done about Elisha ben Abuya. And the sign of his having gotten something done will be smoke will begin to rise out of the grave of Elisha ben Abuya. Go ahead.
When Rabbi Meir died, smoke rose up from Acher's grave.
Period. What does it mean?
It means that Acher was in limbo.
He had been in this just dead category, and Rabbi Meir dies, his neshama goes presumably to the world to come on the good side. He petitions to God on high, and whatever his petition is granted, and the sign of it is miraculously smoke starts to pour out of Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya's grave. We don't know what it means. Does this mean that he's been released? And the smoke
And
is
to
a symbol
where? And
to enter the good place? And this is a symbol of that? Or does this mean he's been released into the bad place and that's where the smoke is coming from?
That sounds logical. There's smoke there.
So let's see where it goes from here, okay?
Rabbi Yochanan said, what a mighty deed to burn his master.
Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan says, what a mighty deed to burn his master. Do you sense a bit of sarcasm in the tone of the text? Okay, so go on.
There was one amongst us, and we cannot save him. If I were to take him by the hand, who would snatch him from me?
Okay, so pause. So Rabbi Yochanan says, can there be one among us, who's the us? The great rabbinic Torah scholars of the time. And we couldn't save him? So what does he think the smoke is? Gehinnom. Okay? And then he boasts, if I were to take him by the hand, right, I could take him with me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Rabbi Meir, what did he do? He kept him from being just dead, and now he has eternal fire. Yay, Meir.
Yeah.
Nice job. This is what you did for your teacher out of love? So, okay,
When I die, I shall extinguish the smoke from his grave.
okay.
When Rabbi Yochanan died, the smoke ceased from Acher's grave.
What does it mean? Is he an Olam Haba, or is he back to just dead?
They put out the fire.
Or is Gehinnom just a little better now?
The public mourner began his oration concerning him thus. Even the janitor could not stand before thee, O Master.
And who's the master there? And who's the janitor?
Well, God would be the master, no?
Yeah, the word here is not going to be janitor.
It's Rabbi Meir.
Hapetach. So this is Shomer Hapetach in Hebrew. I don't know why it would be a janitor. Afilu Shomer Hapetach lo amad lefanecha Rabbeinu. So the proper translation is, even the guardian of the gate could not stand before you, our rabbi. That makes a lot more sense. So this is the eulogizer of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan dies after having made this boast, and everyone ran out to the cemetery, and sure enough, Elisha ben Abuya's grave is no longer smoking. And the great power of Rabbi Yochanan has now been seen, and as they eulogize him, one of the things they say is that the guardian of the gates of hell can't even stand before your righteousness, our rabbi. Okay? Now, since he was talking about saving Acher, we presume that if he was effective enough to put the fire out, he was effective enough to snatch him out of Gehinnom and bring him to the world to come.
Acher's daughter,
Okay, hang on. So now we're going to get a new topic. So what happened to Acher after he died?
the smoke went away.
But first he smoked for a long time.
Where is he now?
We don't know, he's dead.
In the world to come.
It would seem that Rabbi Yochanan him and get him admitted to the world to come. Contrary to the bat call from heaven that said the gates of tshuva are closed to him forever. But rabbis have powers evidently bigger than tshuva. Yes.
Once he's dead, he can't do tshuva anyhow.
Right. His chance for tshuva is done, but they found a way to save him anyways. Why?
Because he studied Torah.
Presumably, he's a rabbi. He knows Torah. That Torah needs to live. Okay, we're gonna swing at this a few different ways in these sugiyot. Now we'll get the story of Acher's daughter. Oy, he's got a daughter.
Rabbi, what page are you on?
We are on 15b. There's a double English 15b, and we are now on the right. No, you were in the right place.
I was?
15b double. It starts with Acher said.
Bottom of the first.
Nope.
He was doing this at the bottom of the first column.
Where's when Acher died?
Or maybe further back. Did we go back a little bit and now we're going forward again?
No. So,
Hang on.
we're,
I'll be with you shortly. This is 13b.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. Let's get you on the right page. Oh, you're right here. We're about to do Acher's daughter right there.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
Yep. Okay.
Rabbi, what are we supposed to make of this story, this whole paragraph that we just?
You're not liking the miraculous smoke appearing and disappearing out of the grave when these
Yeah.
rabbis die?
The grave presumably burning between the death of the two rabbis. 'Cause he
Yes.
said, when I die.
Continual
that's
smoke rising from that grave, yes.
What?
Who's causing the smoke? Is it supposed to be?
I would say, what is it saying, not what is it doing?
Ah,
What does it mean?
it means that once you've studied Torah, you're sort of okay. No matter
Well,
what else you did.
for one thing, it says, just dead is not a good outcome. That we have, that our deeds live on and our soul lives on, one way or the other. And there's good and bad outcomes. And that our Torah learning can overcome those other things eventually. Although, you have an opening here to say, maybe not in life, and maybe something had to happen to him for a while, to some scourge, some crucible, to burn off the,
Sin.
and to be left with what was pure.
Okay.
That is not a world to come that I particularly believe in, but the story plays out with that as a timeline.
Well,
So is it because he got purified, or is it only because of the power of Rabbi Yochanan, who here is seen as more powerful than Rabbi Meir? And we're going to see that in the sugya ahead. Like, is Rabbi Meir compromised by his love of Acher? Right? Is Rabbi Meir now an untrustworthy Torah teacher? Is he now less than a Rabbi Yochanan? Because he continued to attach himself to this person. And those questions are going to come up.
Sub-question about, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
About the smoke, from what you're just saying, is it as if, because of the good deeds and studying Torah and being learned, that the smoke represents like burning off the sin to allow him to still go in?
I think at the beginning of the sugya, the smoke looks like punishment. And we want to try and figure out how that can result in his being freed to a better world to come.
Well, that's what I was thinking, like in Native American culture, have so much stuff about burning off,
Burning off, right?
in terms of purification.
Right,
Some
conflagration, rituals at death and all that kind of stuff, yeah, the
Could
burning
that
away
be
of this
sort
world. And
like that or not?
you can go there, because I think the smoke and the fire are a metaphor to begin with.
Yeah.
So once you move to there, you can take a metaphor wherever you want. I personally am skeptical that if I walked to the cemetery, I would have seen smoke.
Oh, of course, I wouldn't disbelieve.
I'm personally skeptical. The Talmud doesn't show any skepticism whatsoever.
yeah, but in your explanation, this whole story is a metaphor.
Yes.
So it, whether it really happened is the issue.
And we're not in a Baraita here. We're in Aramaic. This is an Agadata.
Sure.
So this is a legend.
Like a medrash.
We have it's exactly like a midrash. We have a lot of Agadata in the Talmud, which are footloose and fancy-free. This is Aramaic. It's not being quoted in Hebrew. It's not being claimed to come from an older text. It doesn't resonate anywhere else. It doesn't reflect a reality that the Torah seems to teach. Let them have the story. What does the story teach you? The story teaches you several things. First of all, Elisha ben Abuya remained on their minds. He was a really troublesome case. They were not content with the outcomes, and they wanted him redeemed, but they didn't know how. Rabbi Meir said, I'll carry it to the world to come. And they think that Rabbi Meir was not able to get the job done. Maybe Rabbi Meir got him placed in front of the seat of judgment, and his sins were the judgment. Rabbi Yochanan said, we scholars can save each other. I can do it. When I get there, I will find the way, and I will bring him out myself. And he seems capable of doing that. So the real question is, why couldn't Rabbi Meir do that? And why can Rabbi Yochanan? And it might be because he's compromised by his affection for Acher. Right? That's just where we are. Yes?
Extent where these phrases burn in hell, or
Well, the phrase you can go burn in hell is more from Dante's Inferno in the Christian world than anywhere else. But we've got, obviously there's a common worldview at this time, that there is a fiery pit. And it's in, the Christian book of Revelations, it's in Babylonian stuff, it's in Midrash, and it's here in Talmud. So this is a belief that doesn't seem to really have this level of development during First Temple times or during Greek times, but by late Roman times, it seems to be a pretty broad-based motif in literature. And it's in Talmud, and the rabbis are comfortable with it. Now, are the rabbis exhibiting something that is a reality in the cosmos, and it was handed down to Moses at Sinai, but not put in the book because it had nothing to do with what he was talking about, but they received it in sacred tradition, and this is the way things really are? That's one possibility. Is this a intellectual development of ideas and culture over time, and the pervasive culture has affected all these different religions who are found in that time and place? That tends to be more how I think the world works. So they're adopting this whole afterlife theology, which is kind of broadly accepted in the cultures that they're living in. What's interesting is that they're using those same images to condemn a man for accepting foreign culture.
Do the Arabs believe in Gehenna?
Yeah,
They do?
yeah.
Well, or else the Talmud is Judaicizing foreign culture. That's-
Yes, yeah. Well, they're going to talk about how much of why was he a problem. So let's move on. Let's learn about Acher's daughter.
Acher's daughter once came before Rabbi
That's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi.
and said to him, O master, support me. He asked her, whose daughter art thou? She replied, I am Acher's daughter. Said he, are any of his children left in the world? Behold, it is written, he shall have neither son nor son's son among his people.
The end of the verse is, the light of the wicked flickers out, his memory will be lost from the land. He will have neither child nor grandchild among his people, no survivor in his dwelling places. That's what Job says about the wicked. Okay? So, do you think she's glad she came to the rabbi to ask for a little help?
She didn't want to hear that.
It doesn't look good. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi does not seem to have a problem with what happened to Acher. Go on.
She answered, remember his Torah and not his deeds.
There it is.
Forthwith a fire came down and enveloped Rabbi's bench.
Ooh. God gave him a hot foot.
Yeah, thereupon Rabbi wept and said, if it be so on account of those who dishonor her, how much more so on account of those who honor her?
Okay, so who's her?
The daughter.
The Torah. That's why I asked the question.
Oh, the Torah.
Yeah, because this is Talmudic language. So listen. She asks him for help, and he says, this guy's not supposed to have any kids, or kids, because he's wicked, wicked, wicked. And she says, remember his Torah, not his deeds, and a fire descends upon the rabbi's bench. Is that respectful to the rabbi, or not respectful to the rabbi?
Well,
Is that supportive of the girl, or not supportive of the girl?
that's supportive of her.
Seems to be supportive of her, supportive of the concept that Acher has Torah learning that should be remembered. The rabbi seems to be receiving some form of rebuke. Not just a rabbi. This is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. the rabbi, right? Now, so he weeps and he says, if those who, what?
Dishonor.
Okay, with those who dishonor her, Torah,
A rabbi who taught Talmud.
so the one who has disrespected Torah has been defended by God. How much the more so the one who honors Torah, fill in the blank. If the one, you got to do the Talmud sing song. If the one who disgraced Torah is so defended by God, then how much the more so the one who honors Torah should be defended by God.
I missed the first couple classes. What did he do that was so colorful?
He had a rash.
Acher is one of four who went into the Garden of Eden, and one came out whole, that's Akiva, one died, one went crazy, and Acher became a heretic as a result. One of the explanations in an earlier sugya is that he went up and he saw Metatron, the angel, inscribing all the good deeds of Israel, and he interrupted him, criticized him for what he was doing, and got him whipped. And as a result, the voice proclaimed that Elisha ben Abuya, Acher, should never ever be allowed to do tshuva, and his good deeds should never be written in that book. Then, once he knew he couldn't do tshuva, because God had proclaimed this through a heavenly voice, he then went nuts. He went wild. I mean, he didn't go nuts. He's very intelligent. But he said, if I'm going to do the time, I might as well do the crime. He says, hey, and to show her that he's not, he picks a radish on Shabbat and hands it to her, and she goes, you must be someone else. You must be Acher. From that, the name Acher comes. And then there's a couple of other stories about him riding a horse on Shabbat, and he gives up on all the mitzvot, but he continues to study Torah. And so the question is, someone who is a heretic, who disparages what the Torah stands for, but still knows a lot of Torah, is their Torah of any value? And that's what's being wrestled with here.
Also whether or not he can teach.
Whether or not you're allowed to learn from him will come. They're gonna deal with that. Okay, so right now Rabbi Meir, who was his study partner, his teacher and student, went to the world to come and tried to intercede on his behalf semi-effectively. Rabbi Yochanan goes to the world to come, intercedes on his behalf effectively, and then we're up to where we are now.
When you talk about her, then it's like poetry where both Torah and the daughter.
It could be that she and Torah were both disparaged and have been defended. How much the more so somebody who deserves dignity and Torah should be defended? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is clearly seeing here that he's being rebuked for having, because what did he say? The wicked don't have children or grandchildren.
Right.
You're a fake.
So how could you be, or you don't even deserve to live, or how, it's a slap across her face metaphorically. It's a shaming of her. And she says, but what about his Torah study? And the fire comes down and gives Rabbi Yehuda Nasi a hot seat, and he says, okay, if somebody who is still defended by the God, I shouldn't be so mad, because how much the more so somebody who's not will be defended by God. That's the law. That's the lesson that he draws from this.
What's one of those, what are you doing here moments? In polite language.
Right. What are you doing? All right.
The Lubavitch have candles at their graves.
Yeah, I can't help you with that. Let's go back to the Talmud.
Okay.
The Gemara. All right, so now we're going to go. How is Rabbi Meir allowed to learn Torah from the mouth of Acher? This is the next question. Let's get a new reader. Rabbi Meir hechi gamar Torah mepume de Acher. Bonnie, you want to go from there?
Okay, but how did Rabbi Meir learn Torah at the mouth of Acher? Behold, Rabbi ben Barchana said that, Rabbi Yochanan said, what is the meaning of the verse? For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth, for he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts.
That's the answer to the question. So the Gemara comes in and it asks, how could Rabbi Meir continue to learn from Acher? Don't we know that we already have the verse that says, The lips of the Kohen should safeguard knowledge, and the people should seek teaching from his mouth. Answer, for he is like an angel of God, a master of legions. Go on.
This means that if the teacher is like an angel of the Lord of hosts, he should seek the law at his mouth. But if not, they should not seek the law at his mouth.
Good. So what does the verse mean? You have a verse that says, the Kohen should teach the laws of the Lord, and they should learn from his mouth. What do we learn from that? If he is like an angel of God, then you can learn from his mouth. If he is not like an angel of God, then you should not learn from his mouth. So they take the verse and they make it teach something entirely conditional, right? About the quality or character of the person teaching. Okay, so the answer to that would be, how is Rabbi Meir allowed to learn Torah? Rabbi Bar Chana has said, you have this teaching that basically says you can only learn Torah from a person if they're like a malach of God. They're an angel of God. They're perfect and good. Those are the people you can learn from.
So far, no.
So that's the challenge. Well, the Gemara has brought this teaching of Rabbi Bar Chana and applied it to Acher. There's nobody in Acher's time who did this, and Rabbi Bar Chana did not do this. The editor of the Gemara, this is now a later text, we're further into the chapter, so it's later levels of editing. We're not doing a Baraita from the land of Israel in the 2nd century anymore. Now we're off to the 4th, 5th, 6th century of Babylonia. This editorial level has come in and said, I have a teaching about Bar Chana, about people learning heretics. And I have a heretic. I'm going to put those two things together here on this page of Chagiga. Right? So that's what happened. So the editor of the Gemara has come in and said, okay, let's take Rabbi Bar Chana and let's apply him to Acher. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to raise a question. How could Rabbi Meir learn from him? Don't we have a teaching of Bar Chana? Bar Chana said this verse means, if this yes, if this no. So that would seem to be a no. So now what's the answer going to be? Amar Reish Lakish. Does Reish Lakish answer Bar Chana?
Reish Lakish answered, Rav Meir found a verse and expounded it as follows: Incline thine ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply thy heart unto my knowledge. It does not say unto their knowledge, but unto my knowledge.
Okay. So he has a teaching of Reish Lakish, which he's going to bring in. Reish Lakish has talked about Rabbi Meir learning or not learning from Acher. That's actually an older tradition, which is being placed down here as an answer to the challenge that the Gemara created. So Rabbi Meir kra ashkach dirash. The Rabbi Meir says that the verse should be understood this way. Okay, and how does this work? So he's going to quote Proverbs. Hat oznecha shma divrei chachamim. Incline your ear, hear the words of the wise. V'libecha tashit lidati, and set your heart to my knowledge. Lidatam lo nemar, to your knowledge is not said. Ela lidati, rather to my knowledge. Whose knowledge, if Proverbs is talking? God's knowledge. So whose Torah is it that Rabbi Meir is listening to? God's Torah. So when Rabbi Meir is listening to Acher, he's hearing God's Torah. Are you allowed to listen to God's Torah?
Yes.
Yes. So the Reish Lakish teaching is a refutation. It says you can learn good Torah from a bad person.
Well, wait a minute. It doesn't say anything about whether it's good or bad.
All God's Torah is good.
Incline thine ear and hear the words of the wise,
Yeah, go on.
and apply thy heart unto my knowledge.
Unto my knowledge, God says. So when you hear, so you could say maybe Acher is not one of the Chachamim,
Right.
so you can't listen to him.
Right.
Yeah, that would be the way to push the argument further.
Okay.
Correct.
So would you edit the,
that would be exactly how to push the argument further. To undermine Reish Lakish on this topic is to say he's not a Chacham. But then you have to enter a category of, can you say that once you're a Talmid Chacham, you can lose that category? Once you're a Chacham, a wise one, learned in Torah, do you lose the status of being a Chacham just because you smoke on Shabbos? Maybe you do. Maybe that's what we're really talking about. Okay, Rav Chanina. Go on, Bonnie.
Okay, Rav Hanina said, he deduced it from here. Hearken, O daughter, and consider, and incline thine ear. Forget also thine own people and thy father's house, etc.
Okay, so he's going to go from Proverbs to Psalms, And this is a wisdom psalm, and the psalm says, "Hear, O daughter, see, incline your ear, but forget your people and your father's house." Okay, so
What daughter are we talking about here?
this is a metaphorical daughter. We just jumped to Psalms, where someone is being told, "Listen to Torah," and in that context, listen to Torah and forget
My father's house.
your father's house. So, if listening to Torah is the opposite of your father's house, tell me about her father's house.
He ain't good.
It's a bad place.
Right.
So she comes from a bad place, and she can still learn Torah.
Right.
Okay? Does that apply directly to our case? See, what?
Could.
Okay, so Rav Chanina Amar Mehacha. When you have the Gemara says, Rav Chanina says, no, you learn it from here. It doesn't mean the last verse just got overturned or beaten down. Stan wasn't there. Stan had a way to beat down the last verse. He could have continued the argument. The argument was Rabbi Meir can't. How can Rabbi Meir learn from Acher? Rabba Bar Chana has a way to say you can't. Reish Lakish has a way to say you can. Stan has a way to say that Reish Lakish is wrong. But we didn't do that. Instead, Rav Chanina came in and said, I have another way to say you can. So we haven't really beaten down Reish Lakish. Rav Chanina, however, is giving a different argument. Maybe he knows Stan. Right? Maybe he knows that can happen. He needs a new proof text. So he brings a different proof text, even though the last one was not formally overcome. All right? So that's what Ela Mehacha means. Ela Mehacha means rather from this. And then you give a different explanation. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, does that mean, it's okay to learn from a bad person if it teaches you?
Reish Lakish would say yes. If what he's teaching you is what God would teach you, if God were standing in front of you, you could learn from anyone.
So, just because somebody does bad deeds, but if he's,
Right. And Rav Chanina has a slightly different spin on it, which is somebody's background does not forever taint them. Right? She comes from a bad house. She's from the other side of the tracks. Maybe she even did bad things growing up. She can learn Torah. Right? The Torah will not be impinged as a result of that sinful background. The Torah can still be good. Slightly different.
But how do you know?
Doesn't say
that
I can
you're
learn from her, but
that you're learning the good part of Torah?
well, if you've got a
from
quote,
From a bad person.
if you have a quote. If you can quote a line from Torah, it's Torah. If you say something that contradicts lines in the Torah and it's not found in a book, then it's not Torah. They have a system that's very easy to identify. If he's quoting Torah, that's good.
Well, how do you know he's quoting Torah?
You take the book down off the shelf and you look it up. That's what it is. Don't downplay the importance of that. That makes it a very difficult system, even with all this pathos. The fact that ultimately you have to have a proof text to say or believe anything, right? But also the redemptive power of that Torah proof text. You own in you you are things that are part of eternal Torah. If Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad is me, if I've completely internalized that in my heart and my soul, and an irremovable piece of me is that. If you take that away from that, I'm no longer me anymore, right? I actually am that. Well, I am something that is divine and eternal. So inasmuch as that piece of me is something divine and eternal, how could it ever die? So the more Torah truths that I become, the more of me can survive death. Got it? That's the theology.
That's a big swallow.
My Torah learning can never die because those things are eternally true. They will never cease to be because they are from God. So how can you not learn those things from anyone? because they're pure. They're coming from a chamber pot, but they are pure. Yes.
This is a little bit off, but it's an example. About a week or so ago, I was watching a debate between Rabbi Shmuley Bataya
Yeah.
and Brett Stevens. And
Back from the Wall Street Journal?
Well, he's now with
No,
the New York
from the New York
Times.
Times
now.
He moved to New York
Yeah.
Times. And they were talking about Trump. And Brett Stevens said.
There's just no way to avoid it. Yeah. Okay.
If Trump, they were talking about, okay, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which Rabbi Shmuley says is a good thing, and he's for Israel, and he's been treating them good. And Brad Stevens said that even if he treats them good, it's coming from a bad man.
Okay. So in modern politics, we could say, let's be even-handed. Let's say you hate Obama or you hate Trump, whoever you hate. If this person does a political policy act which you believe is a good thing, can you applaud them for having done a good thing, or is it so it's them, they can never do anything right even when they do
That was the debate.
the right?
Rabbi Shmuley
Right.
said, yeah, and he quoted King David.
Right.
as an example.
And Shmuley said, I'm sorry, and Shmuley said, it's still Trump out when you can't,
Help
you
me.
don't like Trump.
No, he didn't take that, it's Brett
I know, Brett Stevens.
Okay, so let's move on. So the politics was only a metaphor to explain the Torah here, so we don't need to understand the politics, we need to understand the Torah.
No, but it's that kind of.
Okay.
That's why I thought.
Yes,
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this really resonates with me because when I was very young, around the time of the Civil War, I learned that the yeshiva
You're not talking about Spain, are
was
you?
an Orthodox institution. Many of the students
Yeah.
came from homes which were not religious. I suppose that made many
right,
day school or yeshiva. But boy, I remember vividly the rabbis teaching, it doesn't matter what your father and mother say, you follow the laws of kashrus. In other words, if you came from an unkosher home,
right.
he was teaching, now, he didn't use this phrase as I recall, but I mean, that was certainly the message. There's a higher law than your mother
Right.
and father.
You,
There's a lot of feedback from the parents.
right, Torah law is honor your father and mother unless they're telling you to break the Torah. And then it's honor the Torah. Your father and mother don't get to tell you to break the
Well-
Torah. So which is it?
Right. Well,
So your teacher was teaching you that if you come from a treif house, you need to keep kosher no matter what your parents tell you. And sure, I'm sure that the parents and the board and the PTA and everybody had something to say about that.
Then they fire the rabbi.
They fire the rabbi.
Fire the rabbi.
Okay?
All right.
All right, moving on. Stuart, you had a question. Your hand was up.
Oh, yeah, my only question is this. This must have been a fascinating discussion like 3,000 years ago among these men.
Yeah.
The rabbis today, and I mean today, are they still debating
Absolutely.
these
A-
specific
Absolutely,
ideas?
absolutely. There are people in this town who are being told they cannot come into my class and learn from me. For sure. If someone asks one-on-one, a couple of people in town, can I go and study Talmud from Rabbi Tobin? Will I be learning good Torah?
And they say
Uh,
no.
They'll say no, or they'll say, you could probably find a better teacher. Right?
Because it's not.
Not to say that I'm the best teacher in the world, but the concept that I am disqualified because of who I am from teaching genuine Torah. I would never be able to get a book published by Art Scroll or Katav. Not that I want a book published by Art Scroll or Katav. But there are places that would never publish a book from me because of who I am, because of where I learned my Torah. It doesn't matter what I write, unless I write that every place I came from is sinful. Then maybe they'll publish it.
So is that because you chose to become a Jew as an adult, or because
Because I'm conservative.
Oh, so it's
Because my learning is conservative, because my lifestyle is conservative, because I observe Shabbat and Kashrut as a conservative Jew,
Rather than Orthodox.
rather than whatever that rabbi would say is the true blue way to do things. And because I teach my error in public knowingly, I'm not just a chote, I'm a machti. I don't just sin, I cause people to sin, which makes me not stupid, it makes me evil.
I see.
And therefore, since now we've established that I'm evil, how could I possibly teach Torah without corrupting somebody? And they should definitely not learn from me.
it's
So,
not- it's not
yes,
because
this
you're
is
converted.
alive and well today.
It's not because you're converted, just because you're conservative?
Well, the funny thing is that the people who would consider me a heretic, because I also converted in a non-Orthodox setting, would actually consider me a goy. Now, once I'm a goy,
It doesn't.
my level of heresy is actually not forbidden for non-Jews. So the nice thing is I'm incapable of being a heretic to those people. But I can be a problem.
Oh, good. You're our
We
wonderful
can
problem.
find, even in this Gemara, we can find an excuse for you to teach Torah, because you certainly are learned in Talmud,
Okay.
right?
My Torah is pure. I'm teaching Talmud
Right.
straight. I'm not reinterpreting Talmud and saying the psychology of this is such that the opposite things are true. When we have come across things in the Talmud that I'm uncomfortable with, I don't say they're wrong, I don't say they're stupid. I say, this is what the Talmud is actually saying. My feeling about it is this, my approach on it is that, here's some historical background for it, maybe it's a different level of authority from another place in the Talmud, but I'm not denying the Talmud, I'm still teaching it. So if this is 100% right at face value, and all those little misgivings I have are wrong and a result of my corruption, still teaching
Right.
pure content.
All right, I don't see any smoke coming from your grave.
Let's give it time. You know, with the laws in New Jersey changing, maybe you'll see the smoke sooner.
Is it black or is it white?
Yeah, black and
That's
white.
the.
Right, black and white.
Black smoke or do we have?
I think you told me also that, you know, when a dozen years ago, when these debates were happening, people would slug it out in the streets over this.
Sure. Well, people slug it out in the streets.
No, they still do, what am I saying?
Friday morning at the Western Wall in Tel Aviv, there were, I mean, Jerusalem, it'd be easier if the Western Wall were in Tel Aviv. At the Western Wall, at Rosh Chodesh, women of the wall were there, and there were people shouting and spitting and screaming, and somebody set one of the women of the wall prayer books on fire, and yeah,
Sometimes you hear about brawls in Brooklyn between different sects. I mean,
it could happen, it's happened. Look, nobody's brawling with me because, you know, I don't need them. I have a community, I have a synagogue, I built my building, we're fine, I mean, we can live without them, so they don't approve. Neener, neener, neener. Who cares? I'm not diminished by their disapproval, I don't need it, right? But in their day, the community was tight, and Elisha ben Abuya was a member of it. He was in their room. No, it's a very different issue if I'm going to one of the other synagogues every week. It's a very different issue if my children are in their schools, right? It's a very different issue if I was on their faculty when I decided to start singing bebop on Shabbos, right? Which is, we're going to see what he kind of does. So, you know, they would have a much bigger problem. I'm a theoretical issue down here, and every once in a while a straw man that they can battle with indirectly in their sermons. It's fine. But if I was in that community, it would be a very different issue. They would have to excommunicate me. They would have to put me in cherem. They would have to throw me out. They would have to condemn me. Otherwise, they would have to validate me. And how could they do that?
That's that celebration we have with the different shuls of the different denominations, and they actually showed up here anyway?
That's because the kitchen was under Orthodox hashgacha.
Oh, okay.
If I had been the one saying the room was kosher, it wouldn't have happened.
So they brought in one of their own tribe?
And there was no tefillah here.
Okay,
It was a meal and a lecture. We might as well have been a hotel.
okay, so that's how they're allowed to come in.
Yeah, it wasn't a shul. It was a hotel. It was a rental hall. It was a catering hall. Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's get a little more done. We've got 5 minutes. So, the Gemara says, Kashu Karaya Hadade. So the Gemara says, are these two verses contradicting each other? What two verses? the verse that Reish Lakish formed and the verse that Hanina formed. Reish Lakish had one that said basically you can learn Torah from anyone because it's God's Torah, and the second one is, listen, my daughter, despite where you come from, you can learn Torah. And so the Gemara now says, do those two verses really contradict each other? It's kind of apples and oranges. And it's la kashya, it's not a difficulty. Habegadol is one solution. This has to do with a mature person, and habekatan, this has to do with one who is a child. So the first verse, you can learn from a bad person good Torah, but that's when you're an adult. The second one, where is really, that's what you say to a kid. An adult, you can't say an adult who comes from a bad place, you can still teach that person Torah or whatever. It's only a child who comes from a bad place. Maybe the bad isn't on them. It's not their fault. Maybe they're innocent. That's one solution. Another one. Ki at Rav Dimi Amar. Now this is great. Ki at Rav Dimi. So, historical break. This is a moment in the Talmud you need to pay attention to. When Rav Dimi came, he... Ever hear of him before?
I heard the name, but I don't remember who it is.
I don't remember who he is.
So he's going to come and he sees, Babylonia like,